G'day everyone, Macca here and welcome to Where Are They Now? Now today I'm lucky enough to have a good friend of the show, Ray Vandenberg, aka Goof. Mate, welcome to the show, Goof.
Thanks, Macca.
Mate,
pleasure.
What have you been up to?
Oh, well, other than these days, just a working class man, family, footy, bit of bikes on the side, but yeah, just a standard human being.
Just enjoying life. Now, Ray, tell us, where did it all get started? What age did you start riding bikes?
Macca, I was 4 years old. I started actually in our backyard in the Heaney Park. Dad bought me a little mini trail. I was that small, they had to lower the seat and put a foot brake on it. Yeah, so that's where it all started. And the first ride I ever had was out the back here, going cruising around, couldn't turn, straight under a trailer, got jammed. I jumped off, the thing was still spinning, doing a wheelie, and yeah, that was the start.
That was the start. So where did it turn a corner from there? Like, was it your dad said, listen, I can see some potential in you, or did you say, I love this, I just want to give it a go?
I was pretty much more into trail riding, and then at some stage I got this weird idea, yeah, I'm going to race the junior mini bikes. Did a couple of races, didn't enjoy it, these 3-lap little sprints, so I just said, Dad, that's enough, I just want to keep trail riding. So went back, rode with family and friends until such time I was about 14. I said, yeah, I want to give it another go. So did a couple of junior races and then progressed to C grade, B grade, and I was in A grade at the age of 16 and went from there.
So where was your first sort of major event that you won? Whereabouts, can you remember that?
Couple of junior races. In A grade it started off, I would have said, about 1980, as I think I was 16. Went to Tasmania, 250 Australian title. I got second to Stephen Gall. It was just a mud-drenched race. So
was that at Penguin, was it?
Yes, yep. So that was the first one, and then following that was Victoria and then Australian 125 Championship, and then led into the bigger bikes and Mr. Motocross. Now
you haven't always rode Suzuki, have you?
Rode Suzuki's predominantly until after Mr. Motocross, and then rode Honda and a stint on Kawasaki until such time I pulled the pin.
Okay. So in your early days, didn't you ride a Yamaha in the very early days?
I think back in C grade I may have done a couple of races on one. For some reason we bought a Yamaha, didn't really like it and went back to the Suzuki. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, your father, Terry, he's been a big supporter of you right through your career. He would have been rather proud of you when you actually got the ultimate in Australian motocross history of winning Mr. Motocross.
Oh, well and truly. Without Dad, I wouldn't have succeeded whatsoever. The time and effort and the amount of work he put in and the money for me to achieve what we did, well, we achieved it together. So, yeah, no, it was good to have him part of it, and yeah, again, he was the main driving force.
I always remember back in the early days when we were lucky enough to have a property that we rode out at Gearans out at Clyde, and I was about your age. Well, I'm a little bit older, but that doesn't matter. And I always remember going, and the track was right down the very back of the property, and I remember going there and your dad sitting in the car watching you just do laps and laps, and there was nothing else there but the track.
Yep.
And your dad was always there with you.
He was, as I said, fantastic support, whether it be midweek, weekends, whatever. He gave up all his time, to pretty much fill what we had to do.
So when you were riding, how did you juggle school and your commitment to your bike?
School was, I didn't do a lot of homework or anything as such, and fortunate, school came pretty easy to me, so the study sort of thing was irrelevant as long as I passed, and yeah, we got away with that. And then I said to Dad, I want to race full time. He said, you're not going to do it unless you learn a trade. So I pulled out of school as a 15-year-old, got a trade in panel beating, did my trade. Boss signed me off a year early so I could go and ride, and started riding professionally at 16.
Okay. So who did you first start riding for when you were saying you were 16? You first started riding professionally. So was there money involved when you started riding, or?
There was minimal money payment. Used to get little bonuses, and God, if you earned $5,000 on a side contract with Suzuki, you were doing pretty well in the day. Initially started off with Suzuki Australia. That was a Frank Pons-based team.
Right.
And then had the opportunity interim with Trevor Flood, and then he gave me an offer in 1983 to come and race for him full time.
Okay. Now Trevor was also another big influence in your riding, and especially with the suspension setup and that sort of stuff. What was your relationship like with Trevor?
The Floods were my idols growing up, so every weekend we'd travel to races throughout the country and I'd just stand there in awe and watch them. And Dad, being a personal friend of Bert Flood, we'd go up to the shop, so I'd watch them build their bikes and prepare and do all sorts of things before each race meeting. So I was the little annoying kid that they used to, get out of the way. And then riding for Trevor, look, grew up practicing with him. He showed me a lot of ropes. And in the end, when it came to Mr. Motocross, the advice and the guidance he would give, he had a way of making you do things without giving you pressure. And if he came to the race, he would just build you up another 20%. So, he was fantastic.
Now, am I right in saying that you did all your work on your own bikes yourself?
Yes, yeah. I worked on the bike throughout the week, in between practice, everything else. Trevor and Gary Pye, mechanic I had at the time, they would come and help on the weekends. But other than that, I would do all the preparation, all the mechanical work, the whole lot.
Now, in the day, you were renowned for your bikes being absolutely meticulously down to detail. And that was all you're doing?
Yeah, I was pretty meticulous, probably too much. In the end, it became a lot about appearance, and a lot had to do with psyching, because we never had the product that Honda and Yamaha were able to give the rivals. So whatever we did, we had to make do from home. So we'd roll out in the track and we'd bring out something special, and everyone would go, "Oh, have a look at that." And it was probably confidence boosting for me.
Now, I just got to maybe cast your mind back. I remember a story, and I was there at Broadford, and I'm not sure if it was you or it might have been Mark Hill. There was a rumour getting around the pits that there was this twin muffler RM400 getting around. I think it might have been Mark Hill, and he'd actually put another dummy muffler on this bike, and he got made to take it off, I think, and screwed it.
Yeah, okay. If it was anything to do with Hilly, that'd be right for sure. Yeah.
Okay, getting back to Mr. Motocross itself, who was your biggest rival in that period?
Definitely Jeff Leask. Because Jeffrey was living over here in Victoria, we would do the Victorian race rounds, Victorian titles, then we'd head interstate for all the Mr. Motocross races. Darryl Willoughby from South Australia, good friend of mine, ripper bloke, and hard man on the track. Yeah, the two of those predominantly, and obviously there was the Stephen Galls and the Anthony Gunters and everyone else that lined up at the time.
How did you feel? I mean, obviously you would have seen Stephen Gall. Stephen Gall was and Anthony Gunter sort of changed the format of riding, because they were the first sort of people that trained during the week and put a bit more professionalism into it, and everyone else sort of. How did you feel on the day lining up against those guys that you obviously idled and watched? And
yeah, well and truly, Macca. Growing up with the Floods and the New South Wales Victorian rivalry was always fairly heated. So I was always on the Flood side and wanting to beat Gall and Gunter. And so when I got the opportunity, probably I think at 16 we started training, and I was fairly lean and didn't have to do a great deal. It was more about bike technique, because I didn't have the physical strength of these big guys, and so I pretty much based my riding on that. Lining up for them at Mr. Motocross, it was not really an object. It was, look, I know I can go quick enough, so let's do this. So,
What was your turning point when you were winning when you won the championship? When did you actually know, okay, I've got this? Was there a time there that you went, do you know what, I can win this?
Well, the last round was double points, which we knew from the beginning of the series, and we'd had a couple of ups and downs. We'd been protested against in New South Wales, and we lost on count back. We got to Broadford and double points, and if I had won every race and Gawley finished second, I'd come out on top by something like 6 points. So first race we took off, dead last. And I'm thinking, oh, here we get a great start. So we get through the first moto, 15 minutes in, break an exhaust pipe. But the thing kept going, it was fine.
Yep.
So
didn't sound too good.
No, it didn't sound like a bit of a lawnmower, but got through, won the first one. I thought, okay, righto. Second moto, got a good start, won that one. And the third moto, we're cruising around and I was in, I think, second place. I've come around the top of the hill and he's Gawley sprawled out and he wasn't getting up. And I've gone, I think I got this. So won the third one, got to the last race and I had to finish in 9th position, I think. And yeah, I got a good start. Was dicing with Marty most. I thought, no, you go. I can't afford to be with you. Yeah. And then Gawley sort of crept up and I thought, nah, so I pulled off the side, let him go through, finished third, and yeah, we won it comfortably. So yeah, no, that third moto was the telling one.
Yeah, okay. And that was the 4x4 format? And you
had 4 20-minute races in a row with a 5-minute break. Yep.
Okay. So what was it like after doing like your third moto and coming back and you had 5 minutes and you go, God, I've got to do it again? It was fascinating to watch all the activity in that 5-minute period, adjusting bikes and filling fuel and all that sort of stuff.
Probably more so for the mechanics, because like the first race they come back, they had to change an exhaust, and the exhaust on the old things are nothing like changing a new model bike. So many things had to come off to be able to process it. Then the second race we'd done a clutch, so it's not like you take up the side cover on the clutch, it's kickstart and brake pedals and all sorts of things. So the pressure was on those guys, and how they got through and got it back on the line in time, amazing. Yeah.
That was a huge effort.
Yeah.
So from winning Mr. Motocross, the most prestigious race in Australia, you got an offer to go to Honda then, is that right?
Well, we'll go a step back.
Yep.
Won Mr. Motocross. The following week we had the Australian titles in Akusa Park, and it was the rockiest, shocking track. Everyone just had punctures all weekend. 500 title, the 250 first race lined up. I think I had like a 15, 20-second lead, flat tyre, so that was the end of that one. Lined up with the 500 and had an average start coming through the field. Hit a rock, punctured the front tyre. We're at the top of the hill, gone into a turn and rolled the tyre off the rim. So I've stamped my leg on the ground. The handlebars crunched it and snapped my knee. So pretty much that put a big darkening on my career. So back in '83, in regards to the knowledge of knee reconstructions and so forth, it was minimal.
Yep.
We had some bad information and misguidance, and yeah, it sort of took its toll. So. But Honda did come to the party and still wanted to sign me up under the conditions that I had medically, but it never really prospered.
Yep. So when was the decision made, or did you make the decision, or was it made for you that, you know what, I'm done?
Look, Macca, I had 2 years with Honda, which was a bit of a struggle. Never really got to full fitness again. So it was you're always chasing the pack. Had a few decent races, Victorian rounds, and I think I ended up 4th or 5th in Mr. Motocross, but it was never the same. Then I decided, did my knee again, and I said, no, that was it. And I took a long vacation from racing, and then I had the inkling again back in '89, and I borrowed a couple of bikes and said, yep, I'm going to race, and lined up at Victorian state title in Traralgon on a borrowed 500 and won the race against Lee Hogan. And I just thought, oh, this is not right. How can you take a couple of years off and come back and still compete? So did that. Following week, did another knee, so that was the third one. And I just rode straight in the pits. I said, that's it. I'm not riding again. Never did. And I vouch to this day that I said then, I'll never race again, and I never will.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. So do you still ride today at all?
Get out and trail ride with the boys, enjoy that, have a ball. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Did you ever have the inkling to throw the leathers on and give a bit of a road race a go?
Nothing. None whatsoever. No. No, not for me. No.
Okay, now you might have noticed sitting behind us is a beautiful RM500. Now, this RM500 is the bike, isn't it?
It's the one that that I won the title on. It's amazing that it's here.
Yeah. Now, you might have noticed sitting behind us is this lovely RM500. Now, this is the bike that Goof won a title on. And I was very, very privileged to be at your 50th birthday when it was presented to you. You had no idea that this was happening, and the look on this man's face was priceless. Tell us about that.
Yeah, priceless indeed. Yeah, when at the party we're doing speeches, and Roscoe came up and he was having a yarn to the crowd. And,
as he does.
Yeah, yes. And an old friend was coming along, and I'm thinking I'd spoken with Leesky during the week, and I thought, oh, yeah, they've done a shifty, and Leesky's on his way in. So here comes an old friend. So I turned around, and when this came through the door, it was like, oh, I won't say what I said. Yeah, it was pretty overwhelming indeed. Yep.
They've done it absolutely sensational. You couldn't replicate. It is the bike. This bunch of mates and group of friends that I have, I owe immensely. They come up with an idea. Roscoe, Christian, very special friends of mine, amongst others, to let's get hold of Goof's old bike and rebuild it for his 50. Now, this was a 3-year project, which, yeah, amazing. And what they've come up with, it's perfect. Yeah. It's perfect. Yep. Yeah, it's absolutely amazing.
Yep.
Wait, what's your favourite thing on that bike?
Too many to mention. Basically, because of the point, everything was hand built and made and drilled, and we had it milled. And look, I couldn't pinpoint. It's just the whole package. It's a special thing. Yeah, there's just so many things on that bike that I could pinpoint. But yeah, the whole package is great.
Yeah, it's quite amazing. Yep. How did they find the bike? How did they know that bike there was your bike?
It got pieced together. There was a gentleman, Jason Ladson, who unfortunately, he purchased this bike some time back and approached me whether I'd be interested in giving him a hand rebuilding it. And I'm not sure whether he knew at the time that I had the opportunity to take hold of it, I would have done so back then. And so I pretty much abused the hell out of him and told him where to go. So it wasn't a good beginning. Then when Roscoe and Christian and the boys came up with the idea, they started tracking down all the individuals, and Jason had started and commenced doing the restore. And they approached him, and I don't know how, but yeah.
Because Jason Ladson is a huge fan of yours. Absolutely huge fan of yours.
Yes. Some of the memorabilia and information he's got on me.
More than what you've got, haven't you?
It's at stalker stage. And a ripper bloke. So we've patched those disagreements over, and I'm very fortunate.
Okay, now we've got a lot of memorabilia here, and I notice you got Fox Sportswear on your jerseys too. Tell us about that, because that happened before actually Fox Clothing actually started. Is that right?
Fox Sportswear was a motorcycle clothing, or actually surf clothing company in South Australia, which Trevor Flood was involved in. So yeah, they had a brand of racing jerseys and nylon pants, which we wore while we raced for Trevor. So that's where that came from.
So obviously they got sort of taken out by the original Fox.
Totally different. I think the Fox Sportswear South Australia sort of did its own thing, but then Fox Racing America was a total different identity. But yeah, if you look back, 1983, the style of jumper they had, it was, I think, be in front of its time.
Okay. And also too, you've got the Mr. Motocross trophy at the back there.
Yeah, I'm lucky enough to have one of those. One of seven, so yeah, pretty proud.
Okay. You've got your original helmet. What other memorabilia have you got that's apart from the Mr Motocross trophy? What else would you sort of say it's?
Look, Macca, I've got bits and pieces of my old riding gear, which I just stored away and retained. Got a couple of the new modern era guys' jerseys, as in Reedy and Brett Metcalf, the Aussies, Blake Baggett. Fortunate enough to pick those up signed. But other than that, it's just some of the old stuff that I've got.
And do you still go to the races and stuff today?
Not as often as I used to. I've lost a bit of enthusiasm in the Australian scene, which might come across that I'm not interested. But yeah, I think it lacks. Can I do that again?
Yeah,
Sorry.
no.
How do I do this without being a fuckhead?
Just be honest.
Yeah.
We won't make you look like an idiot, trust
No.
me. Not at all.
In regards to local motocross, I don't get along as much as I should. You might call that selfish, but I don't find it as entertaining as it used to be. These days you go to a race meeting and it seems like you're standing there forever on end to watch 3 or 4 different races. So things have changed. The scene's totally different here than, say, the US. I don't get there enough.
Okay. One of the things that I find very confusing about the modern day scene, if you can call it that, when I used to go to Mr Motocross and stuff, you would see Stephen Gall in his Maya shirt, or I'm talking early days, or Floody and Mike Lamon in their motocraft tops.
Yep.
And they wore the motocraft tops every race. And so you would know, oh, there goes Lamon. The only difference you could see was that Lamon or was that Trevor? And so they had the same team colours all the time. Now you go to they were these beautiful flash gear.
Yep.
But you don't know who's who anymore.
From one race to the other, unless you can identify bike and number and that.
But even the bikes don't even look the same.
Yeah, I know. I'm hearing you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know what you're saying. Back in the 80s, everyone was identifiable. Things have changed.
Yeah, things have changed. Yeah. Now, tell me, riding these bikes back in the day, the difference between the modern bikes and the new technology, do you find that it's advanced that much, or is these things still okay to ride? Or, I mean, they're incredible amount of horsepower, but they didn't have the tameness of the modern bikes.
It differs in regards to these, for instance, the horsepower was brutal, and it was
Hang on.
Yeah, pretty much. They used to vibrate. The suspension, the rear end on Suzuki's full floater, I would say is compatible as anything modern. The front end, okay, leaves a bit to be desired. Braking is the main thing. If you could put a set of brakes of a modern day bike on this, you'd go twice the speed. But the new stuff's it's comfortable, it's smooth, it's easy to ride. It's easy.
Didn't you, in one of the races, you try some upside down forks?
Yep. We tried.
Because they were pretty advanced in their time.
Oh, they look good.
Yeah.
So we had to have them.
But did they work?
No. We didn't have enough information to be able to valve them or anything, so we put them on. We didn't test. We went to Queensland. It went backwards. And Trevor was trying to sell Simon's upside down forks at the time, and he says, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, they don't work." I said, "I can't ride it." And he goes, "Righto." So we went back to white power conventional standard sort of forks.
And is that because you simply didn't have the information to set them up, or have they changed and advanced that much from that day?
Oh, definitely. The internals of the modern day front fork to initial upside down forks is just 100%.
Yeah.
Totally different, yeah.
And so obviously you would have noticed one of the biggest things was the no flex in the front end with the upside downs compared to the conventionals.
Oh, when we put them on, because the Simmons forks were like 46 or 48 mil, they were huge. So they were solid, they were like bricks. So there was no flex, there was no feel, it was just this rigid thing that you couldn't ride.
Right, okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So you've done all your racing, you're enjoying things. What do you do with yourself now?
Socialise.
Socialise.
Yeah, look, it's just family life these days. Work.
And married with two girls?
Happily married to my wife Tan, my two girls, Taylor and Portia. Both successful kids. Very happy family.
And I believe one of your daughters, she is following in your footsteps and being challenged with a world title.
Yeah, Portia's very much focused, and she's driven with her sporting cheerleading career. She's been in Victorian state titles and won classes there, national titles again, and she's just been invited to get into the world titles in Texas next February. So Tan and Portia will be heading over there, and hope she does well.
Absolutely. Now, have you, being a top of your tree, obviously it's definitely skill and physical fitness, but it's also a mentally fitness as well. What advice do you give to your daughter now? Can you sort of pass on some sort of inspiration to her to think positive, or how did your mindset go?
It's difficult, Macca, because how do you explain what we used to do in bikes to what you do in cheerleading?
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
Okay, we do triple and quad jumps, and you jump up in the air, and everyone say you're crazy, and then I watch her, 4 people tall, doing flips and spinning, and I just think, you're kidding me, aren't you?
So what do you do with yourself now with work? And
back to the old trade as a panel beater. I actually manage a shop, so looking after a group of guys and getting the job done and paying the bills.
Beautiful. And Dad?
Dad's getting older. We still see Dad, and we still have a good laugh, and he likes a beer, and we enjoy our time together. It's good.
Excellent. Now, also too, in your memorabilia, you've got Chad Reed's jersey there. Do you follow Chad and so forth in America?
Yeah, just ask the family. So the first part of the season, US Supercross, it's every Sunday morning, and generally a group of guys will come over, we'll watch every round. So life sort of stops until the Supercross season's over. Mad Chad Reed fan. Hope he can do it one more time.
Do you think he can?
I think it's getting harder. I reckon this will be his last chance next year.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Who's your tip for Villapoto? Will do it again, do you think?
Well, Villapoto going to the States sort of opens the event right up. You'd have to go, there's the young guys in Ken Roxon.
Yep.
Dungy will be there. You've got Bam Bam, Trey Kennard. There's a whole group that could come out and do wonderful things, but I think Roxon looks pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Did you yourself ever get a chance to go to America and ride Supercross?
No. The opportunity was coming the following year, but I did my knee, so that just cancelled it.
Okay. So do you talk to Chad at all?
I've met Chad a couple of times, but haven't really been in depth with him at all. But yeah, huge fan.
He would know who you are, though.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Oh. So tell me honestly, did he know who you were?
Yeah. Well, look, I was introduced by Roscoe and a couple of guys when we were at Phillip Island 2 years ago, and yeah, he was aware, but like, I'm too old.
Too old, too slow.
Exactly.
Now, you mentioned before when you started sort of professional riding when you were 16, and you didn't do a lot of training, but you developed your own technique and style, and it was very unique. How did you develop that?
Well, again, because I wasn't...
Was Dad saying, do it again, son?
No, he wasn't like that. Oh, look, he was one of these, every time we go out practicing, he was on the stopwatch. He was stopwatch mad. So physically, I was never big. I was never going to be a muscle man and ride that particular way. So my style was fairly fluent and flowing. I concentrated more on the cardiovascular side, running, cycling, playing squash. But as far as gym work and heavy weights and all that sort of stuff, no, I never got involved in that.
Okay. And you had a unique jumping style as well, going over jumps. was that just trying to flow with a bike?
Yeah, look, I used to like jumping big, so it just came across. That was just the way I did things. It was probably slightly different than everyone else, and then others tried catching on, and mine was probably unique, but yeah.
It worked.
It worked.
Now, the modern guys today, that they do a 30-minute moto plus 2 laps or whatever, so they might be on the bike for 35 minutes. They have a 2-hour break, whatever, and then back it up again with another moto. Now, these guys are fairly fit. They're riding bikes that are a lot easier to ride and have got working suspension. How tough was it to do 4 20-minute motos? That's 80 minutes of riding in one day, and the pressure of trying to win Mr. Motocross.
We didn't know any different. So it would be, you knew you had 4 20 minutes on each particular day. You would train accordingly. You'd practice that amount of time during the week. There were no personal trainers, there were no masseuses, there was no ice baths, you lined up and you did it. Probably the 4 starts were the difficult part. The actual riding part, okay, back then in the 80s it wasn't as intense as it is now. But to challenge these things, 500 two-stroke for 4 20-minute motos, it was pretty demanding.
So when you had your break for 5 minutes, you said, we talked before about, the mechanics would run around doing this, they would change an exhaust and a clutch and all that sort of stuff in 5 minutes. What did you do?
Well, it all goes back to, back in the day, you'd have your pasta the night before, and then morning I'd have cornflakes before every race. I'd go to the race meeting with a big ice cooler with raspberry cordial and bananas, and that was me for the day.
Right.
That was it.
So that's all you ate and drank during
That's
the
it.
day. Just going back to these 5-minute intervals that you had, I believe that when you won the race, that's when the 5-minute would start.
The 5 minutes commenced as soon as you crossed the line.
Right.
So it'd be you cross the line, you'd tear back to the pits, park so the boys could do whatever they had to do on the bike, and you'd refresh. But the poor guy in 10th, 12th and 15th place that was back down the field, they get back and they're lucky to get 3 minutes. Yeah. So it was just never ending for them.
It's just bizarre that actually, I mean, Vince, when he made up that system for Mr. Motocross, was just amazing.
It was unique and it was exciting. Like the crowd would be at the fence for 100 minutes in total, and it was just action from Moto 1 all the way to Moto 4. So yeah, it was entertaining.
Yeah, it was excellent. Okay, Goof, mate, thank you very much for being part of the show.
My pleasure.
It's been absolute pleasure talking to you, and to see this bike of yours is quite amazing, and also to hear some of the stories and the history of Australian motocross. That's all we've got time for. We'll see you next time. Remember, if it's classic, it's fantastic.